All right. I got my guy again, Ryan Page, the first ever double guest on the Productive Conversations podcast. And he's in for a special reason today. Not only first to check us out every Friday for the tweet cap on now all podcasting platforms. We got
I
accepted,
know.
including Google, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Transistor, our podcasting host. And also, Ryan came in because as you've seen in the previous segment, I had not only my guest Kevin Schaefer giving his perspective being a Trump voter and supporter, and I figured, to be fair, right before the election day, why don't we hear somebody who votes for Biden and who is supporting the Democratic side, and why not other than Ryan Page? And I'm glad he's here again with me. Ryan, what's going on?
Not much. Just dropped off my ballot at the Middlesex County drop box. It's right here in my town. So me and Melissa took a walk, and we went ahead and dropped off our ballot yesterday evening. So all voted up.
How did it feel to finally vote? 4 years in the making. This is definitely different than what you planned, probably, as much as a year ago.
Well, yeah, I voted last time too, but yeah, I mean, part of it is a weight off my shoulders. I won't lie. I don't know what Kevin said about his voting plan. Everyone should have a voting plan, regardless of who you're voting for. But I was torn about whether or not I would go in person for a lot of reasons. Obviously, I didn't necessarily want to go wait in line with coronavirus being what it is, rising here in New Jersey. I also, though, and maybe this is the president's effect, I was nervous about not voting in person. Would my vote be one of the votes that gets contested? Not because it was anything wrong with it, but because of politics.
Yep.
And B, would it get there? When would the vote get there? Even if it did get there, not that I think this would happen, but could you imagine if the state of New Jersey went for Donald Trump on election night and then flipped to Joe Biden, a week later?
Yeah.
I mean, he would never stop talking about it. That would be the only thing Donald Trump spoke of. And not just New Jersey, but California, New York, all those super blue states. Well, Pennsylvania is a swing state. They need that one to win. But I mean, if you got a blue state to turn red on election night because his people were the only ones who voted that day, and then it went back blue, when all the other votes were counted, I mean, he wouldn't stop talking about it. He would say that he won everywhere. He'd be like, I won New Jersey and I won New York, and they still took it from me. He'd be insufferable, more so than he already is. So that's why I wanted to vote in person. And ultimately, because of the laws, is the reason I voted the way I did. Turns out if I voted in person, it would have been a provisional ballot anyway. I would have had to write it in like I was filling out an absentee ballot. And then they would have looked at it along with everything else. And I was like, if I'm going to write it in anyway, I might as well write it in from the safety of my home.
Yep.
Drop it off. And, I mean, it's not going to get counted any sooner or any later. They're going to count the votes as they get them, and that is what it is. So, yeah, that was ultimately what made my decision. So super political reason. But I have to imagine everybody's really weighing in how they're going to vote because it's so different than how we're used to, how we did it 4 years ago and so on.
For sure. My plan at this moment, I'm planning to go in person on at our former middle school, West Rocks Middle School. And if you want to see me there, I'll probably go definitely between the hours of 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., no later than that.
Okay.
So I'm going right in the middle. Shouldn't be as crowded at that time, even in a non-COVID year.
Yeah.
So that's why it's beneficial for me also choosing in person and, run to our local center, see our local leaders getting that last minute vote when I walk in, whether you're Bob Duff or Lucy Evans and Caucides. And, I know how I'm going to vote. I know I've had some emotional things at the end of the day regarding my vote, but I will not make a dumb, irrational decision because of an unimportant reason. I will vote for who I believe is right. And all I say, I hope there's a change and on a federal level. But having said that, let's discuss.
Sure.
Right now, Trump, Biden, most likely, even though we have Green Party candidates and libertarians, that looks like it's gonna go down to those two.
Yeah,
And
more than likely.
is it fair to say that you are somebody who will be voting blue? Like, officially, I can ask that if you don't mind me asking.
Well, I mean, yeah, I assumed it was the reason you brought me on because you
Yeah,
had
of course. Just
Kevin
for
who was voting for
professional
Trump. So yes,
reasons.
I figured by virtue of me being the person that talked the opposite of Kevin, that yeah, it was pretty well known.
Okay. So, can I ask first things first? Why,
Sure.
Ryan Page, are you voting for Joseph Biden to be president?
Because Donald Trump isn't qualified to be president.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard to do after being president for 4 years, by the way. But even with 4 years head start, he's still less prepared to be president than Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what I'm saying. Someone who's never been president is more prepared than someone who is currently president. But I mean, look at the world. I know they're going to say, well, COVID's not his fault, and it's not. COVID isn't anyone's fault. And although if you ask Trump, he'll blame a list of people who are not him. But even if you take the fact that there's a virus killing people out of the equation, you still have to deal with how we responded to it. That's still a part of it.
Yep.
No, we didn't choose the virus. Nobody chose to have this virus kill people. This virus get a lot of people sick and destroy communities economically, obviously, physically. But we did choose how we were going to respond. We did choose to decide that, life-saving procedures like wearing a mask and standing 6 feet apart should be optional. And we didn't even attempt to push those things when we decided to make them optional. I mean, a lot of the best public health campaigns have been optional. Like seatbelts for a while were not the law.
Yeah, it didn't take until the 80s
But,
till that.
right. But what they did do was they tried to explain it, and they pushed real hard to get people to do, the right thing. I mean, you talk about Fauci, who's in charge now. He was brought in during the AIDS epidemic.
Yep.
And in that case, too, it was very much the same way. They wanted to make sure that people were, practicing safe sex. And that was the way that it worked, by the way. When they were doing a AIDS could kill you thing, nobody listened. And then when they, got real, they broke it down and they were, pushing people to make the safe decision. It was less about punishing behavior. No one was saying you're an idiot for going to the store right now, or in that case, you're an idiot for, having sex. But they did say there's a way to do this safer. There's a way to limit the risk. And that's the thing that, we've talked about before, no risk versus some risk. Is there a difference? And the answer is yeah. A lot of risk and a little risk. Yes, they're both risk, but no, one of them is better than the other. And this election, I think, comes down to that. Even for people who don't like Biden, a lot, they're not their preferred candidate.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of risk and there's a little risk right now. There's a lot of risk if we keep Donald Trump in for 4 years to democracy, to people's health, to the economy. There's a little risk, of course. There's always risk when you change course. You don't know what Joe Biden's going to do. Nobody does. They know what he says he's going to do, and you have to take him at, his word for most of that. But there's a lot of risk and there's a little risk. And the little risk, way, way better than the lot of risk, because Joe Biden has good ideas. He has said he's going to implement them. And so really the only risk people are saying is, what if he lied? Well, this president did lie a lot, like 12 times a day or something, according to like news media trackers. So if lying is your problem, I don't know. It feels like it's hard to make the case that what if Biden lies and then vote for the president who has lied to us for 4 years about basically anything he felt he didn't want us to know.
Could you just name some of those lists? I know what you're talking about, just for listeners' sake. What are some of those things
what he lied about?
Yeah, and proven to lie about throughout.
Yeah,
the 4
well,
years.
he told Bob Woodward he knew it was coronavirus was airborne. Basically, he knew everything he said he didn't know on TV. Mm-hmm. And then when it all came out, he was like, "Oh, well, we're learning." He lied on his taxes. I know that the man's not actually a billionaire, but he made more than enough to pay $750 to the federal government. And that's a lie that's been perpetrated like over decades. That's not even just like these last 4 years. He said he was going to work across the aisle when he was getting elected. Everyone thought, shake things up. A business person knows how to cut a deal. He hasn't cut a single deal. Everything has been done partisan. I mean, they just put a Supreme Court justice on the bench without any Democratic support. Brett Kavanaugh, whom was accused of rape. Yeah, rape. He had support from some Democrats. Not a lot, but that was technically bipartisan support. Not a single bipartisan vote for Amy Coney Barrett. None. So how is that working across the aisle? It's not. And then the wall, like I said, the wall is a sham. Steve Bannon has been arrested for defrauding people who've been trying to support building this wall, and that's a lot to unpack, but he's in jail now because he was building the wall, but really he was pocketing a bunch of money from folks who wanted to help Trump build a wall. That's not how government programs should be run. You shouldn't have to GoFundMe a government program. And he has basically just kept everything that he said on the table so he could say it again. He didn't want to fix any of his issues. He didn't want to keep any of his promises because, well, what does he have after that? And he knows that because nothing he said was going to make the country better. Nothing. And so he's like, if I can't make the country better and tell people, look how much better it is, I have to tell them it's still broken. And the only way to do that is to keep it broken.
Definitely fair responses. I want to ask you this, Ryan.
Sure.
To be fair, when I spoke with Kevin, he acknowledges some of the things Trump has done wrong himself. He said his ultimate backfire that even makes him uncomfortable is his mouth. And that's more of a paraphrase. And those are the exact words, but Kevin pretty much admits that it's his mouth that is the biggest problem. And that's a Republican admitting Trump's wrong. Is there anything you can say or give credit for Trump in every little thing, even if it's just as small as the federal? He made animal abuse a federal problem, a federal issue. That's good for animal issues. I'm saying, is there anything?
Sorry, right. I'm going to cut you off a little bit. So, no, and I don't say no in a bad way. I'm not saying that nothing was accomplished over 4 years. That would be an absolute lie. But like, he's the president. You can't separate that part. I mean, this guy wants a cookie for doing his job. When I do my job, I get a paycheck, and that's it. My boss doesn't call me every week and say, hey, you made it another week. Good job. No, there's an expectation I do certain things. The president of the United States, there's an expectation he is able to and will do certain things. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, the crime bill, that's something that he worked on, right? Obviously. He's done some foreign affairs stuff that surprised me. Some of it I didn't like. Some of it I thought was fine. But that's not the point, because that's literally his job. So to sit there and say, well, he did accomplish something, I would hope so. If you can't accomplish a single thing in 4 years, and they'll say Obama didn't, but that would be a lie. If you can't accomplish a single thing in 4 years, then, I mean, that just proves you shouldn't be president.
Yeah.
I wish I had 4 years to do an assignment at work. You kidding me? Someone said, here's what you need to do. You've got 4 years to do it. Go ahead. Like, if you can't get that done, then you're not trying at all. And so, I mean, no, I'm not going to give him credit for things that he should be doing. I can, if you want to, go, tit for tat, like, is there anything about Joe Biden you don't like? I mean, I don't like that he's 78 years old. Not his fault. It's when he was born. But yeah, I do think he's probably, I think Donald Trump is too old to be president, to be clear. I'm not saying that Joe Biden is too old.
He is the oldest elected president.
Right. Unless Biden wins, and then it'll be Biden. So either way, one of them is going to be the oldest elected president. So both of them are too old to be running. And I would say that to anyone. But at the end of the day, that's who's running. So the president's going to be too old regardless. Might as well be the person who, isn't actively lying to people, isn't actively creating problems that we don't need. Problems that could have been avoided and should have been avoided in the middle of a health crisis in particular.
Definitely fair, absolutely fair response. And you alluded to my next point, just one of the few things that some people as a whole say that might hinder that might hinder Biden's ability to be president. Yeah, is his age. What our buddy Stephen Colbert, you know what he said? He once said, and that's true, and it's a general phrase, is that you shouldn't diagnose someone you never met. And if people could accuse Biden of dementia and they accuse him of being kind of uncomfortable around people, we'll take the uncomfortable part away for a second. Not that that's not a bad thing, because no one should make anyone uncomfortable, but focusing on people accusing him of dementia. Dementia is pretty damn serious, and I'm sure we've all sadly saw someone succumb to that, and that's quite the accusation to give to someone. And do you feel that is a legitimate concern, or not?
No. The people who are calling him dementia, who are not named Donald Trump, they're the people who struggle to get through high school. Mm-hmm. They're not medical professionals. I would never go to a buddy of mine and say, hey, I'm not feeling so great. What do you think's wrong? They don't know. I don't know, by the way. Mm-hmm. I'm not sitting here saying he doesn't have dementia. I'm not his mental health provider. I'm not his general practice provider.
Yeah.
He's got doctors, as everyone who served as vice president does. It's one of the perks, even though we don't have health care as a country, they do. If he was unfit to be president, the doctor would have said something.
Right.
And I don't mean that as in like, well, what if he paid the doctor? Yeah, what if he paid the doctor? Joe Biden has been in public life for 46 years, more than that, because it was 4 years still in public life. He just wasn't in elected office. He didn't just get dementia in 2019. That's not how it happens. If you have dementia, it didn't just happen. Now he's the nominee, he's got dementia.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how Trump would like you to say, and that's what his supporters will say. But a doctor, years before Joe Biden considered running for president, would have said, Joe, you have dementia. I mean, he showed no signs of anything that even resemble that. Again, I don't want to get too much into this conversation because that's what they want. They want two people who don't know anything about medicine, don't know anything about anything, to go on about who has dementia, who's showing signs of dementia. It's different in everybody. It's a disease. Not all diseases manifest the same way. Some people get a cold and they're laid up in bed. Some people get a cold and they just, take an emergency and go about their day.
Emergency.
It's not being sick with something doesn't mean you're going to have the same list of symptoms. Symptoms are not a checklist. Symptoms are a survey. When a doctor looks at your symptoms, they're not looking to see, oh, you've met 3 of 6, you might have this. They're looking to see, what could this be? Let me get the symptoms. Let me take this survey, and then I can get closer to the answer. And so I don't want to get into the arguments about, two people who don't know anything about medicine deciding whether or not Joe Biden is mentally healthy. I will say that I haven't seen anything that made me think he wasn't. And I will also say that there's no way they could have kept that hidden for however many years it would have been going on for. So between those two things, I'm pretty confident that those are just, people without much knowledge trying to appear like they're somehow above or better than the sheeple who are voting for Democrats or Joe Biden specifically.
And do you, going back to the other point regarding Trump, Biden's, there's some pretty awkward pictures we've seen in the past and people explaining, for lack of a better word, is Biden a creepy old man? And, whether it's sniffing hair or, putting his hands where they shouldn't be. Is that a legit concern at all, or no?
So everyone involved in those situations, from what I've seen, and I haven't seen everything, has come forward and said it's being read into too much. It's being misportrayed. For me personally, yeah, I actually didn't like that. I still don't. I'm not going to pretend I like something that I don't. But I mean, the president just went to court to see if the Department of Justice, so again, the people we pay as taxpayers, could defend him in his case against a woman who accused him of raping her. This is the current sitting president. So I would say to anyone who says, well, creepy Joe Biden, makes women uncomfortable. Again, I don't like the age of the candidates, but that's their ages. we've got two men who are running for president. That's what we have this year. There's no way around it. I know the names. I know the names of the other two people running for the other two major, third parties. I don't know if you could. I'm not saying that to insult you.
No,
but,
yeah, I can't. It's fair.
And I don't and
know.
I would have to guess that the person that you did before me can't either. But
I will say he's going to law school for constitutional law. I figured he might know.
I'm not saying that.
But yeah, the average person doesn't know.
Bad. I'm just saying those people are not going to be the president of the United States.
Yes.
They also come with their own baggage. One of them has never served. Actually, neither of them have ever served in elected office. We saw how well that worked. So again, there's two people who could be president of the United States. One of them has proven that they're going to fail because they failed for the last 4 years. One of them is not. And that same one who has not proven anything has also gone for 46 years and done a lot of good for a lot of people and served his community. I mean, that's all he's done. Everyone looks at that as a bad thing. Oh, he's a career politician. Yeah, that means a decision was made early on that I'm not going to start a successful law firm. I'm not going to take a small loan of $1 million and bankrupt several casinos. He made the decision that I'm going to spend my time taking care of people as best I can, representing people as best I can, and helping my community as best I can. I don't see how that can be a bad thing. Listen, if he was a corrupt politician with a career of corrupt decision making, been caught, and I know they're trying with this Hunter Biden crap. Sorry if you have to get rid of that. But
no, you're fine.
They're trying now. In the last 2 weeks, suddenly he's the most corrupt person ever. According to Donald Trump, he said that at a
trying to tie Borat into it too.
Yeah, but it's again beyond that. Like, no, never has he been charged with corruption. He's always been charged as a guy who's trying to represent his community and his constituency, however big or small that may be. And so, from Delaware to the entire United States, I just don't see the comparison. There isn't one. In terms of who is dedicated to service and who is dedicated to self-enrichment, to making themselves more rich, more famous, and there's no comparison.
Definitely, man. So we got just 2 more points because the timing is coming on. Just one of the things that even Biden supporters say that might be a concern is Biden's tax plan regarding and changing things, and we might see some rates going up. Do you think that is a major concern in any way, shape, or form?
Do you have $400,000 you can lend me?
Not at this time.
Then neither one of us has to worry about Biden's tax plan. I mean, I may be of the minority in this particular opinion, even amongst some Democrats, but I don't think I am. There's a lot of really wealthy people in America, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that those people need to pay more. And I was asked actually by a Trump supporter, well, what if it were you? And the answer would be, yeah, I would pay more. And I was told I was lying, but that's not true. It's not. You can be wealthy and say, wow, I have a lot of money. Most of the candidates running for president every year fall into that category, and they still put out these tax plans. So you can have a lot of money and say, I don't need this much. And it's not about need. I understand that. You made the money. But you know who does need the money is everyone who doesn't have it.
Yep.
All of those people who don't have $400,000 or more. And so waiting for this moment where we're all going to be rich, it's impossible. We're never all going to be rich. It's how rich works. If everybody was rich, I mean, it'd be insane. There would be no way, to have an economy where everyone was rich. Mm-hmm. So instead of creating a system that exploits all of the not rich people, which is most of us, because someday you might make it big, why don't we accept that we need some more money coming into this country, and there's a group of people, a small group of people, but a group of people who have it. They have the means to help their country, the country that they got rich in, the country that buys their products, and the country that supplies their workforce. They have the means to help this country. So the Biden tax plan is not going to affect anybody who's struggling to get by. It's not going to affect anybody who currently needs help. But what it is going to do is going to take those people who don't need help. And I don't mean like are living comfortably. I mean like don't need help. And they're going to say, you got to pay a little more. And they're going to pay a little more. And then we'll have less people struggling. When less people struggle, they buy more stuff. They can afford to take, the time to get themselves better educated to enter the workforce. So now, instead of having 16 people do small tasks, you can hire, 4 people to run your company for you. People that previously weren't going to be able to get that education or get that job training now can get it because they don't have to worry about working 6 small jobs to pay for food and then another 3 because they have to pay for rent.
What a game. Ain't that an endorsement to get your stack them bends, as some of the younger kids would say. But anyways, so we got 4 minutes to go. Ryan,
sure.
My last question for anyone, if there's anyone on the fence, figuring, do I go Biden, do I go Trump? Or do you have anything to say to them, or any last words in general to give a endorsement?
Yeah, if you're on the fence, I mean, my endorsement means nothing, so I'm not going to endorse. But if you're on the fence, I would look at it this way. One person has had 4 years to do everything they promised, has delivered none of it, along with a global health pandemic and a litany of other problems. I don't have to tell people about the news. We do that on the tweet cap. The other person has spent their entire life trying to serve their community. Has not always gone well. Crime bill, for an example. But they've spent their entire life dedicated to service. Their family has spent their entire life dedicated to service. Jill is a teacher, Jill Biden. Bo, who was deceased, served in the military and also served in elected office. This is service versus selfish. One person has served their community. The other one has been selfish the entirety of their life. You can't ask an old dog to learn a new trick. Donald Trump is not going to be the savior this country needs. He has never shown that inclination before, and he certainly hasn't shown it in this campaign. Whatever you're worried about, be it the vice presidents or the age or whatever, just note that at the end of the day, these 2 people are going to run for president, and one of them is going to win. So do you want the selfish one to win, where you know he doesn't care about you, or do you want the one who's selfless to win, where you know all he's ever done is try to serve you? That's what I would say.
How about that? 2 minutes go. Well, Ryan, I thank you for giving me the time. I'm sure plenty of other listeners appreciate the time as well. I'll see you as I'll record the tweet cap with you, which will air this Friday, and then we'll have a special, definitely election edition of it. But besides that, thank you again, Ryan, for the time and giving some nice perspectives, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.